let's get into it. Let's get going and let's get cracking. It is the 21st of September. It's just gone 1 minute past 1. And welcome everyone to today's webinar, a culture that makes people feel, yes, I can succeed here and perform. How are you doing there, Mike?
Good afternoon, Wins, and good afternoon, everyone. What an absolute pleasure it is to spend the next hour with you. And we welcome a conversation. We welcome a conversation around decoding what does it take to create a healthy culture where people feel that they are set up for success. And today's conversation is going to take us into the dynamics and the role of management, why that is such a critical, important role in any business to unlock great performance, or as we call it, 10x performance. Wins, let's get cracking.
Let's go. Let's probably start off. There may be some people that may be meeting you for the very first time, Mike. Let's start off with some introductions, shall we?
Yeah, fantastic. Well, to those that don't know me, my name is Mike Franks. I'm the managing executive for Sales Optimisation. I'm a student and a scholar of this fantastic art and science that we call sales. My background is in consulting, but my passion is to unlock the recipe of success. And today's conversation will look at what are some of the tenets, the principles, the mindsets of high-performing organizations and the role of sales management. Some quirky facts about myself. Yeah,
let's hear them.
I'm certainly not a singer, so please don't ask me to sing, as my famous namesake has been known to. I'm a bit of a trail runner, a bit of a long distance runner, and I have a nickname that is now colloquially known, or more colloquially known within my inner circles, as Wiggle, but certainly only few of those get to call me that.
I think that sounds like a disclaimer there, Mike. It sounds like a bit of a warning there, but we'll take it. We'll take it. Hi everyone. My name is Winston. I work hand in glove with Mike. I have the pleasure of working with him pretty much on a day-to-day basis within sales optimization. Some quirky facts about me. Well, I bought my first vehicle from winnings from video game tournaments. True story. I'm a word geek. Love learning new words. And hey, I spoke at the Sales Leadership Conference a couple of years ago, and they gave me two indigenous names, Chuku Emeka, right? As well as Olajide. Yeah, so if there's anyone there from West Africa plugging in, that's what they call me in Lagos. Let's go, and let's get into it.
Well, fantastic. So guys, we're excited to launch into the conversation today, which is really a conversation around this really exciting ebook. It's quite a substantial document that we will share with you post today's webinar. And really what we've done today is lift some of the key elements that we see as pertinent with discussing, with debating during the course of the next hour. And as mentioned, we will circulate that within 24 hours post today's conversation. So today's conversation is hopefully going to be bi-directional. Please do issue or post any questions that you might have. We will have a quick Q&A towards the end of the session. We would love to hear your voice and creating a bit of a conversation around any questions that you might have. Thanks, Wins.
Yeah, high performance sales management. That's what today is all about, creating the culture, creating the environment. Let's get cracking, Mike. What's happening today?
Well, today we're going to look at a sailing analogy. We're going to talk about getting the right people into the right seats on the boat. We're going to talk about what it means to be the helmsman and how and why the helmsman is so needed today post-COVID. We're going to look at both the art and the science of how high-performance sales organizations get management to really step up and set the drumbeat. They say that culture sits within the shadow of management and leadership. So let's unpack that a little bit. Let's look at why it's so important to have both the skill sets, the personal characteristics, and most importantly, a high-performing sales manager is about being good at sales and great at managing people.
Two dimensions there, managing people, being a good sales professional yourself, but the environment is a bit tricky at the moment. I'm sure half the people on the call today may be plugging in from a load shed at the moment. There's a couple of challenges, Mike. Tell us about them.
Yeah, Well, look, I think we're all facing this element of this hybrid workforce, and digital acceleration. We're looking at the competitive forces. We're looking at our competitors that are just as hungry as we are. We're looking at how companies need to establish a framework where individuals feel that they belong to perform in an environment that is open for success. We're going to tap into some of the key elements that we see as critical foundational blocks to get right. We're going to talk about why it's so important to have a clear understanding of your value proposition, and why your sales teams need to understand the nuances of how they position that value proposition in different client contexts. The market is just as saturated as it ever has been. It's difficult to get in touch with the right people when load shedding kicks in. How do we maintain the momentum? How do we maintain the cadence? How do we maintain the energy? How do we understand the multifaceted elements of what goes into the complex sale today? How do we pivot our narrative, the questions we pose? What data are we looking at such that we can get more granular in the coaching conversations that we need to have? And how do we ensure that at the heart of it, our people feel engaged, supported, and set up for success? All of those fantastic invitations for us to reflect on over the next hour.
Lots of dynamics, lots of challenges, lots of moving parts there that you highlighted, Mike. But let's take a step back. Let's take a step back and let's take a look at why this layer is so important. Why do we need sales managers in 2022, September going on October? Do we need sales managers at all, really?
Well, look, let's understand the role that the sales manager plays. And I think it's important to position them in sort of the org structure of any organization. And they are most certainly what we see as being the fulcrum or the glue that resides in terms of strategy, articulation of strategy, the codification of strategy, and then the cascade of strategy. So this layer of any organization has two key roles. They've got to manage upwards. They've got to manage stakeholders that want data, they want insights, they want trend analysis. They require you to be on top of your numbers. They require you to understand what it takes to create a healthy business, a healthy sales force. And they need you to be on point, on song, and engaging both in terms of your internal stakeholders, which are your team members, as well as the complexity of the clients. They need to be responsible for the cascade of strategy. But that's only half of it. The other half of it is that they've got to be the voice piece of what's happening in the sales force. They've got to be in a position to hold and have courageous conversations with their teams. They've got to be able to walk in the footprints of both the team, their clients. They've got to be able to understand their value proposition, coach in the flow of work. They've got to be able to ignite and excite team members when they're down on their numbers. They've got to be able to communicate. They've got to be able to understand where the puck's going. That famous statement from Wayne Gretzky when asked, why are you such an incredible hockey player? Why are you so much better than anybody else? And he says, I'm not. All I can do is I can predict where the puck is going to be. So where, as sales managers today, are they predicting where the puck's going to be in terms of market, in terms of competitors, in terms of clients, in terms of trends? And are they holding the team together and setting that team up for success? So the complexity of this layer is both in terms of managing the executives above and then creating this environment of high performance.
Okay, fair. I hear you, Mike, loud and clear. It sounds like the sales manager, the sales leader is the glue. There's a lot of hats there. There's a lot of hats. It's a dynamic environment. They need to put on a manager hat. They need to put on a leader hat. They need to execute here. But now, you mentioned something about how they make the team feel. It sounds a bit touchy-feely, Mike. I gotta be honest with you. We're getting in the realm of tree hugging here. Unpack this feeling stuff for me.
Well, that is the invitation for today. And I think this is it is actually the soft metrics that we're going to see that drive the hard metrics. How you make people feel. And we're going to look at the elements of what that means to feel in a place where I belong here, I can grow here, I can perform here, and I can collaborate for impact here. These are all beautiful invitations that every sales manager today must heed if they're going to create an environment where we get multiplier value of high performance. And hopefully we'll touch on one or two things that can certainly ignite some thinking today. And the invitation, please, is to post into the chat any questions, anything, any other elements that you feel can unlock team performance today. But it is certainly how people feel that we believe is the secret sauce to high performance today.
Very interesting indeed. We're talking about feeling, we're talking about connection, but we are in very choppy waters. Interesting times we find ourselves in, and let's talk about the boat. Let's talk about the boat itself.
Well, the boat itself is around gearing up and sailing into the wind, tacking. It's around understanding the market conditions. But what we really believe, I think, are three key invitations that can best serve an organization is, to what extent are you inspiring and given motivation? We know that an inspired employee is 2.5 times more productive than even an engaged employee, if you look at some of the Bain research. So that is a huge multiplier to get right, is to drive inspiration into the way in which we support, we coach, we engage, and we set up for success. Are we providing the enablement, the resources, the tools, the canvases, the approaches, the methodologies, the processes, and are we coaching that for consistency? And then ultimately, we've got to tack. We've got to be able to create a direction. We've got to be able to enable a process, and we've got to be able to look at the data within the process such that we can understand how our teams are performing in each stage of the funnel, such that the conversations that we have are more granular and the decisions that we make are performance enabling.
Yeah, makes sense. You said an inspired team member is 2.5. Is that twice is twice as effective as an engaged team member?
That's what the science says. So let's decode that. So let's take the science and let's look at some of the art form behind that. And today's conversation is really going to emanate around this core image that we see as our high performance golden circle. And the invitation here at the core of it is, you want your team members in your sales team to say, I belong here. I've found my home for success. And we're going to decode that a little bit. We're going to see that that's a culmination of creating an identity that includes the habits that we establish. And we're going to touch a little bit about belief. All of those are important culture elements that we can factor into today's conversation. And today's conversation is going to be broken down into 3 key chapters. What do we mean by I can grow here? And there we talk about, how are you as a sales manager creating an enabling environment for performance? I can perform here. What are the skills, the mindsets, the behaviors that we need to build, both in terms of ourselves as a manager within a team, and how we translate that into team value? And then most importantly, as I see, is this idea of collaboration mastery, how we actually collaborate for impact, because it is all around impact, and how we get people playing to their strengths, and how do we create team dynamics that creates this multiplier value. All of those are invitations for us to touch on today, and let's see where we land.
I belong here. I can grow here. I can perform here, and I can collaborate here. All right, loud and clear. How do sales managers now make this framework real to achieve business goals, Mike? Because ultimately, that's what sales leaders actually employed to do. That's what good looks like, and that's how their success will be measured.
Well, we had a look at the image earlier around the layer that they sit within. They've got to help articulate the strategy, and they've got to help execute on the strategy. So the business strategy to ultimately driving business results is actually one of their core job hires. To do that, they formulate a sales strategy that they need to execute on that. And in order to execute on a sales strategy, you've got to create what we call business and workforce alignment. And it is our positioning that in order to create that business workforce alignment, the golden circle is the circle of truth. And that ultimately is the conduit, it is the catalyst, and it is the invitation for us to look at both hard and soft metrics that any manager today is invited to take on in order to get better performance. So let's jump into it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. You're getting the juices flowing quite nicely.
So let's start off with, what do we mean I can perform here? Take us through some of the thinking that we've been able to document that we want to share today.
Yeah, pleasure. You know, it's all about performance. This is, different parts of the business are measured differently. Sales can be brutal. It's pretty much black and white. It pretty much comes down to this performance layer, Mike. And performance is a quantitative measure. It comes down very often to the rands and cents. It comes down to whether we're meeting our targets or not. It comes down whether we're meeting our forecasts or not.
Let's talk about segmentation. I've mentioned earlier in the front end of it, the importance of being able to articulate your value proposition. We know that one of the biggest challenges our clients face is the ability to articulate their value proposition. And in fact, when we ask our clients for their value proposition, at best what we hear is a capability statement. Why is a value proposition and the ability to differentiate your narrative in client context one of the biggest levers of success today?
Mike, it's absolutely the first point of departure. It is absolutely the first point of departure is really articulating your value proposition and crystallizing why the market should choose company A over company B, why they should choose you over the competition. And, you know, to better articulate this, Mike, I need to go backwards. I need to probably go into the 1960s, late 1960s, early 1970s, and tap into some thinking from good old Professor Ted Levitt. Theodore Levitt is one of the founding fathers, and he is a seminal voice on the subject of crystallizing a value proposition, articulating a value proposition. It was his clarion call when he says people don't want to buy a quarter-inch drill. What they need is a quarter-inch hole. Now, what was he saying? Saying it's about the benefit. It's not about the product. It's really not even about the customer, to be very controversial. You know, there's so much thinking out there that makes us obsess over the customer. Customer is king. Is it really the customer is king? Or is it really what the customer is seeking to achieve that's king, Mike? That's really where we want to go.
I love that distinction because, you know, far too many teams and far too many of the companies that we speak to are so well versed in selling their drill. They think their drill is in fact what the market wants. But here's the truth. The market is not as excited about your drill as you are. They're only becoming excited about your drill when you give them a reason to. What did old Clay Christensen say about understanding why people buy what they buy is so critically important to factor into the articulation of our value proposition?
Mike, it's absolutely key. It's absolutely critical that we understand that it's not about the product, it's not about the service, it's actually not even about the customer, but it is the job to be done. And it was Professor Clay Christensen, you know, rest his soul, he passed away some 2 years ago, that helped us to crystallize some of this thinking in his seminal work, Competing Against Luck. And it was he that started to modernize some of the thinking that Theodore Levitt probably came up with in the 1960s into our modern day environment. And he helped us to understand that, hey, customers hire products and services to complete a job. It's really about the job to be done. That is the most important dimension of articulating a value proposition. And you cannot separate the job to be done from the value proposition. They're so interwoven. They are the yin and the yang. They are the one and the same. And if an organization fails to understand what the job to be done of their products and services is, if an organization loses it here, Mike, the entire sales process, the entire system of selling, the entire connection with the market is lost. And if you lose the connection to the market, then what are we doing? Then everything else we do is an exercise in futility. So what jobs theory essentially helps us to do, Mike, is it helps us to narrow down what the customer really achieves. Because this is one of the key challenges is, especially for sales professionals, is we fall in love with our products. We fall in love with our drills. But this is the challenge. The market doesn't care, Mike. The market just wants to get a job done.
So the invitation then for a manager is to be able to understand what job is the market hiring us to do. Because if we can short list the jobs that we are best suited to solve, certainly that is then an invitation to say, well, where are those jobs that we should be hunting for in the market? And that ultimately allows us to actually say, well, how do we start a new conversation in the market, not at a drill level, but at a job level? Because if we start more of the right conversations, it's proven the fastest way to improve your conversions today is start more of the right conversations. So management needs to be really attuned to not trying to be all things to all people, identify the jobs that we're best hired to solve, because that'll give us clarity in terms of A, our value proposition, and B, who we're competing with. Because if we can get better in hunting down those opportunities to start, we'll convert more.
Spot on. And I think
So your
the
value
next point,
proposition.
my apologies, there's a delay on my side. I've just been hit by a load shed.
No problem. Over to you.
Yeah, Mike, the value proposition is the next logical step. It is the key. It is the reason why an organization is chosen over its competitors. And every single organization has a key messaging framework. And sometimes there's a lot of clutter when it comes to this key messaging framework. Is it the slogan? Is it our payoff line? Is it our mission statement? Is it our vision? Is it our value statement? Respectfully, the market doesn't care about all those things. All the market cares about is your value proposition. How does your stuff, how do your drills solve my job? How do they solve my problem? And this is the first point of departure, because if you lose it here, you will never resonate with your target market. So what is a value proposition? You know, we ask this question almost on a daily basis, and we get a myriad of answers. Mostly, as you've highlighted, we get a capability statement. They tell us what they're good at. They tell us what they do. They perhaps tell us what they're awesome at. But the best value proposition, well, it articulates the problem better than the customer can. Oh yes, it joins the conversation that is going on in the mind of the customer. It is not product specific. It is not feature specific. No, it is pain specific. It articulates the pain of the customer, such that the customer sits back and thinks, oh my goodness, this person, or perhaps this organization, it's almost as if they're in my mind. It's almost as if they know how I feel. It's almost as if, you know, they sat in our boardroom. It's almost as if they understand my frustrations. And that's how we cut through the clutter. And this is the other dimension, is we're in a very loud marketplace. There's always organizations clamoring for our attention, social media, you know, when we drive through traffic, and we're juggling a lot just in life in general. But a good value proposition cuts through the clutter and gets the attention of the intended recipient, the ideal customer. And that's really the key.
Lovely. And this is a beautiful little canvas that allows companies to really articulate the strength of their value proposition. And it invites an organization to not start on the left, where products and services are known. It invites our organizations to look on the right, identify the jobs that we could be hired to do. What gains are they looking to achieve? What pains are they currently facing? And to that end, then, how does our value proposition provide the gain creators, the pain relievers, which then indicate our product and services, which are ultimately our drills? So the ability to target and the ability to align your value proposition to segmented target audiences is the key.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And the temptation, as you've rightfully said, is to start over here, to start off with our products and services and how awesome we are, and how great we are, and all our accolades, and oh my goodness, we've been in business for so long, and you know, look at our shelf of awards. The market doesn't care. All the market cares about is my pains. Can you solve my pains? Do I get the gains that I'm looking for? And are you integrating around the job? Are you solving the job?
So Wins, let's tap into some of the mindsets. What are some of the invitations that we should double click on as managers today for us to really look at what can we tangibly do every single day to unlock performance in our teams?
Yeah, 100%. And this is where the rubber hits the road, Mike. This is where sales managers really need to roll their sleeves up. And the first point of departure is inspiration. It's really being that beacon of inspiration. And this goes far beyond a a pat on the back. This goes a bit beyond an occasional attaboy. No, no, no. What this is really about is inspirational leadership. Going through what we've just emerged from, let's say level 6 load shedding, where there seem to be more hours where we were in the dark than in the light. We have to inspire the team. We have to keep the team on course. We've got to keep the team on point and on focus, because that inspiration, it's going to show on their calls. It's going to show in their meetings. We don't want a depressed and dejected team. The next thing is we have to foster a high performance culture, Mike. It's really about articulating goals, crystallizing what a good day, what a good week, what a good month looks like, and holding everyone accountable. A lot of teams are still working from home and working remotely, but we need to crystallize, and we need to have a frequent report back to say, hey, are we on track with regards to performance? Are we meeting our performance goals? Are we meeting our activity targets? Are we playing the numbers game of sales? Because sales was, is, and will always be a numbers game. And then are we monitoring that process flow? Are we looking at the key indicators, our metrics? Are we achieving those numbers, or is our funnel suffering blockage? Do we have any bottlenecks or any kinks in the system that we need to iron out? And then, hey, what are the activities that are actually, giving us results? Because we want to know. We want to know what we should do less of and what we should do more of. A sales manager, a sales leader today needs to be a data analyst more than anything, just to process the data, analyze the data, and work accordingly. And last but not least, Mike, it's really about growing the sales team. It's really about stretching human beings. Human beings can only be engaged and inspired when they're growing, when they feel like they have a high sense of contribution, when they feel like, yes, the calls that I'm making, the meetings I'm doing, the quotes that I've put out, and of course the deals that I'm closing are actually making a contribution. I'm not just a cog in the machine. I'm the heart of the business. And really, that's the key, man.
I think there's a final comment to make on this, and I think the mindset here is your role as a manager, in fact, is to serve. And your mindset should be that their success ultimately is a reflection of your success. And it's not the other way around. And I think teams that start to foster this culture of performance are deliberate in growing, in stretching, in supporting, in engaging the growth of their teams. It's not just about sitting and having a one-on-one meeting and looking at the number. It's about putting up the sleeves and getting into the marketplace and leading by example, because that is how you get people inspired.
Spot on.
So we've done quite a lot of work in this area. This old adage, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your habits, I think is a critically important tool set for any sales manager today, because it can get extremely operational and tactical, and it's evidenced in day-to-day activities. And what's exciting about the articulation of habits is that it can move the needle very quickly. You don't rise the level of your sales goals and KPIs. We know that they're important. You fall at the level of your systems and your processes, which are accumulation of your day-to-day habits. Tell us a little bit about habit stacking for sales managers.
Oh yeah, this is key. It absolutely begins and ends right here. It's what you do, Mike. It's really about what do you do on a day-to-day basis. And what we do now, what the science tells us, is up to 40% of what we do on a daily basis is actually on autopilot. It is habitual. So we have good habits and we all have bad habits. But does it take a superhuman person to develop good habits? Well, the answer is absolutely no. If we look at the Collins research and Good to Great, where they researched 20,400 organizations, they actually looked for an archetype of a 10xer, a 10x person. In these organizations that were achieving 10x performance, they tried to find, is it this type of person, this type? And the truth of the matter is they couldn't find any. So what that tells us is anyone can be a 10x person. Anyone can develop good habits. But to make it practical now, well, a good habit is just to check the pipeline. It's just to have an obsession with the pipeline itself, understanding your entire funnel, understanding, hey, what are the conversations that I need to have? Daniel Pink calls this attunement in the new ABCs of sales today. Attunement, buoyancy, and clarity. Well, you have to be attuned to the market, but you also have to be attuned to your team. You gotta know what is the sense, what is the sentiment within your team. You have to be attuned. And you got to keep your promises, Mike. It's so important, both internally and externally. And yes, we're going to make mistakes. Yes, we're going to flounder. Yes, we will disappoint ourselves. But I think that people are looking for genuine and authentic leaders that can actually show that humility and show that, listen, I'm not in a good space. That authenticity is required. The next habit is staying on the cutting edge. Well, technology is moving at such a pace today. There's so many tools out there. So we need to fire some bullets here before cannonballs, Mike, to actually understand, okay, what can I bring into the business? What can make us better? Do we need Calendly links? Are we utilizing our CRM? How can we utilize selling via WhatsApp? Are we really generating leads the best way we could? Are we on the cutting edge? Or is what we're doing antiquated? Do we still have a block on our website that says register for our newsletter? My goodness, we still see some of that stuff in 2022, and it just doesn't work. So we have to stay up to date. And last but not least is measure. You can't manage what you can't measure. So we need to break down our funnel. We need to reverse engineer our entire funnel and measure every single stage of our funnel, Mike, to make sure that are we achieving what we're looking to achieve? Are we generating enough interest in our research? Are we activating enough clients? Where are the guts? Where can we work? Do we have a closing problem, or do we have an opening problem? Those are some of the key habits that an effective sales manager would require.
That's lovely. I loved your view of talking that the sales manager today is a data analyst. In the absence of data, you actually cannot manage effectively. And I think this is one of the big shortfalls of our clients today, is in the absence of data, they're making judgment calls that typically aren't what's needed for that individual to feel that they belong. So importance of understanding each individual and meeting them where they're at relative to the conversation that you have with them is the number one invitation for sales management today. Because ultimately, you can't get someone to feel that they belong there unless you're having an individual, unique, conceptual conversation with them.
100%. And it's really about growth, isn't it, Mike? Most resignations, what do people say when they pull out of an organization? Well, I was looking for growth. I felt that I couldn't grow there anymore. So growth has become an essential part of the sales execution experience. And people are looking to develop themselves, Mike. How do we understand and how do we achieve this growth? Any thoughts there?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to understand the day in the life of any salesperson today. And, every salesperson today is focused on identifying companies to make promises, making the promises, and then closing and delivering on those promises. And it's important for us to be able to articulate that into a process, and understanding why an analysis of a funnel and the ability to understand the tools, the approaches, the tactics, and the metrics are so critically important. This is the engine room of every high-performance sales organization. This is where it either creates the opportunity and the demand of a healthy funnel, or we don't. And if we don't, we know what happens. So why is this so critically important as a management tool? And how can companies use this to calibrate how they support and engage their teams every day?
Spot on, Mike. Sales is an art and a science. When we're looking at the scientific side, well, funnel science is a good place to start. And what is funnel science? Looking at each stage of your funnel, which is perhaps one of the most powerful concepts in sales management today, and breaking them down so that we know exactly where we are and we know what's wrong. We can diagnose when we need to, and we understand how each step, each stage actually plans out and how we're doing at each stage and each step. Now, if we look at the 7-stage funnel process of creating a new customer, well, let's say a customer goes from aware right through to being a paying customer. It starts off with research, activation, pitch, meetings, and then we want to close that customer. We want to deliver, we want to close out, we want to ensure that the customer is satisfied, and we want to retain and grow that customer over time. But the crux here is this, is is sales managers, sales leaders essentially need to lead with funnel science. They need to have a funnel lens. They need to understand the different stages of the funnel in order to diagnose which stage of the funnel is working, which stage of the funnel is not working. Where do we need to improve? Where do we need to throw some cash at? Do we need to throw some cash at research? Do we need to throw some cash at and some training perhaps in the pitch? Or do we have a closing problem in our funnel? Is it the negotiation? Do we need to create some sort of incentive program? And of course, the big swear word in a lot of organizations today is discounting. But sometimes we do have to discount. Is it something we need to look at? Are we being squeezed out of our deals because competitors are stacking better value than us? And if we don't have a holistic and a broader sense and a bird's eye view from the funnel, then where do we coach? Where do we focus our teams? And how do we sharpen our team's competencies such that we build a lean, mean selling machine, Mike?
Love it. The invitation is to get on top of the numbers and top of the habits that sit within each of these funnels, and then start to bed them down for consistency. So the invitation here is to understand, are we aligning our process, our sales process, to how the market's buying? The other invitation is, how are we integrating with marketing, such that the transition between creating awareness and the work that marketing does translates into a beautiful handover for sales to convert. So implied in this conversation as well is, how well is marketing integrating into our sales efforts?
Yeah. I believe in it. And I think organizations today need to be, we actually need a marketing function. It's a term coined by HubSpot to say, we can't have any more walls. We cannot have these silos, especially between sales and marketing. But the other dimension, Mike, is belief. Belief is a key component here. And I understand Dr. Albert Bandura has some thoughts on the subject.
This is some seminal work that has been incredibly revealing in the analysis of high performance organizations. And I'd put it down to one of my top 5 ingredients of high performance is this whole concept of, yes, you can grow here, but you've got to believe that you can grow here, and you've got to believe that you can actually deliver on your mandate. You've got to believe that you can hunt down big deals. You've got to believe that you can meet and exceed your targets. And it's a fundamental component of every high-performing sales organization that we've had the pleasure of engaging, is this high sense of belief. So how do we build belief? And how do we understand belief? Well, Albert Bandura came up with the model of 4 elements that we've shaped into a narrative that I think it's easier to consume. But before I kick off, I want to ask and pose a question for you. When last have you heard someone say they believe in you? And when last did you say, I believe in you? Those words, I believe, are the most critical words to get right into a sales team every day. And we believe that there are 4 ways in which you can create belief. The first one is what we call through deliberate practice. And that's the first layer of belief, is that you've got to have belief that you can do it. And deliberate practice gets us into a model of being able to get the belief of closing big deals. Because if you can't close multi-deals and you haven't ever closed multi-big deals, well, then that's the first layer. So the first layer of belief is, as a manager, is to get your teams to succeed and get those runs on the board and get them into a habit of closing big deals. So how are you as a manager, through your deliberate practice, fostering a belief and the activities and the processes and the support for your teams to close big deals? The second way you build belief is through what we call inspirational stories, or as we also call it, vicarious learning through others, and the ability to create opportunities for individuals to share their success stories, such that if I see a colleague closing a big deal, my sense is that they can do it, I can do it. And how are you creating within your team dynamics the opportunities for your teams to share their success stories? Where are we learning from each other? Where are we inviting everybody's voice into the conversation, such that we learn from the process of engagement through peer reviews, through understanding each other's challenges in the pipeline, to sharing our successes, our challenges? Those are all opportunities to forge belief. The third element, or the third level of belief, is through the enlargement of others. And that's so critically important for management to say, I believe in you. I believe that you are the right person on this team, and we back you. We have you. We're going to back you to the end. I believe that you can do this. And then the fourth, ultimately, is your mindset. It's around, how do you embrace challenges today? What is your mindset? How are you managing your anxiety? How are you reacting when things go wrong? When those big deals that you forecasted to close don't close? What is your mindset of remaining, in our language, blue-headed, calm, and the ability to engage these challenges, learn from these challenges, and then build belief in terms of how you fix these challenges? So Bandura gives us an incredibly powerful framework as managers to look at our team structures and say, how are we building the belief within our teams? Because to build belief is the first element of growth. And I think that in itself is something that I believe is one of the core elements that if we wanted to get, any company wants to get right today, is to build the structure of creating belief in your teams.
It's very sticky, Mike. Deliberate practice, inspirational stories, learning from others and growing through others, and managing the mindset, managing the anxiety. Oh yes, it absolutely stings to lose a big deal. It hurts. And this is where the mental toughness of the sales professional will be tested. This is where the caliber of the sales team will be tested. But hey, who are we? Every single career, every single vocation has some sort of Achilles heel, doesn't it? I mean, teachers will have kids that fail, doctors will have patients that die, police officers might dodging bullets in traffic as we speak. A lawyer will have clients that go to jail. So it's something we need to deal with. It's something we need to grow into as sales professionals, is building up that level of belief. The next dimension is the collaboration, Mike. We're looking to crystallize this journey to belonging. Where does collaboration come in?
Well, this ties it all together. And, I think it's important for us to have a look at, so many dynamics come into play under collaboration here. How are you performance managing? Are you performance managing individual contributions? Are you performance managing team contributions? And the clarion call for us is to look at the quality and the extent of our team structures. Marcus Buckingham has this most famous saying that we absolutely live into, is that you don't get high-performing sales organizations or businesses, you get high-performing teams in businesses. And this is an art form and a science form, because the ability to understand one's strengths is key as a manager. Because strengths give you energy, weaknesses take away your energy, and you want your teams playing to their strengths. How do you as a team manager congregate a team around strengths? And do you know the strengths within your teams? Because the opportunity is to then get a well-balanced team where individuals start collaborating for performance. When you start getting individuals playing to their strengths in a team, that's when you unlock multiplier value. This is core as we move into this post-COVID world, because not everybody in our team is set up to hunting new business. Not everybody is set up to fostering, maintaining relationships to grow key accounts. So this hunter-farmer mentality, where people are better suited to different types of profiles, different types of conversations, different types of industry engagements, are core as a manager to have a view on in your team. Because when you get people playing to their strengths within a team, that's where we start to see breakthrough value.
Yeah.
So why is this critically important, Wins? Tell us why. What does the data tell us about getting team dynamics right when it comes to sales?
Now, Mike, you know me by now. I like to lead with the data and not the drama. And I'm sure we have some sales managers saying, "Oh my goodness, sales professionals just don't seem to play nice," especially when there's commission involved. There's a lot of clamoring over each other for deals in the market today. But this is what the research, this is what the data tells us. Implicit partnered with Salesforce. And they had a massive research exercise, 21,000 organizations. It was a global research exercise. And what they established was a couple of dimensions. One of them is the fact that team collaboration closes more deals, right? And how they got this data, Mike, is via Salesforce and via the email integration. They looked at how many emails are copied across team members, and they actually picked up that, you know what, when there's more people involved from the selling organization, there's a higher likelihood of closing deals. So collaboration on sales teams is scientifically proven to be good for the business and good for the team. It's a win-win for everyone. I guess the challenge is dealing with the solo assassins, those lone wolves that want to sell on their own. But what the empirical evidence clearly tells us is the organizations that hunt in packs have an edge.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's a complex environment. We all operate in complexity every single day. The question is, where do I spend my time? Where do I spend my effort to unlock team performance? And I think we've all been in sales long enough to know that there's no one silver bullet. You know, the manager's job is multifaceted. And the opportunity for us to get a view of the world is to actually start saying that there are multiple moving parts that any manager today can ultimately, or any business today can ultimately look at. And what we've been able to establish over the last 15 years of analysis is that there's actually a formula that allows companies to assess their maturity and their readiness. And it allows us to review the correlations that exist between how sales leadership set the drumbeat for culture, how they set the alignment around, do we all value the same things? Do we all bring intensity into what we value? And as a sales manager, are you inviting diversity and inclusion and voice such that you start to exclude what we call echo chambers of believing your own brilliance? Are you open to hearing other voices to give you a true understanding of where you sit within the market? How are we aligning our execution of strategy to culture, and are we measuring and managing the right things? Are we following a process with discipline and consistency that gives us the data as management to be able to get very granular in the coaching conversations that we have? If we look at process to digital to performance, what is the data telling us? Are we building muscle of making better judgments and better decisions? What data are we looking at to really give us an understanding of how our teams are performing? And is the data setting us free insofar as the actions that we take to continue to sustain that performance? And then as a manager, how are we ensuring that we are engaging through our coaching, through our motivation, inspiring the brand, and getting individuals to play to the highest level of contribution? And are we equipping them with the skill sets, the mindsets, the capabilities, the value proposition, such that when they go into the market, they win more than they lose? Because they've got the belief that they can compete better than anybody else, because that self-belief is established because my management team believe in me and I feel that this is my home of where I can perform. All of these are invitations for us as management to look at our capabilities today, our mindsets, our structures, our processes, our method of engagement, and create a systemic view of the environment such that we can look at it holistically. That is the invitation.
I love this, Mike. It really gives us a bird's eye view of the entire sales function and which levers to pull, which levers will actually create results, which levers will actually carry us towards the business imperative, the business objective, as well as the ultimate goal. Sales by design, I love it. It really is a cheat sheet. It really is a cheat sheet for a sales manager to sense check all their activities and what they're doing on a day-to-day basis and how all those activities plug into the ultimate goal. I think this brings us to the Q&A, and I think we're doing fantastic for time. It's bang on 10 to 2. We wanna invite some questions there, Mike.
Yeah, I see that there was a question from Anthony. Thanks, Anthony. He would love you to clarify this whole concept of bullets and cannonballs as one question to look at.
I see that. Anthony, Brilliant. Thanks. Thanks for highlighting that. Bullets and cannonballs is a good to great a framework tool that says, hey, what you want to do is you want to have some low distraction, low cost tests and experiments before channeling all your time, effort, and energy into that task, into that deed, into that action. It's really around empirical creativity. The good to great companies really realize that, okay, they have this practice, they have this discipline of empirical creativity, firing a bullet before a cannonball, because you work on the data, you work on the result, you work on the outcome of your bullet. And it really encourages us as sales professionals and sales leaders to be continually experimenting. What can we experiment with? Well, we can experiment with activation messages. We can experiment with subject lines. We can experiment with tools. We can experiment with CRM. We can experiment with lead generation campaigns. We can experiment with a myriad of things. But firing a bullet is saying we're not gonna put the entire business dependency on an experiment. We're gonna do low distraction, low cost, low risk. And based on the results, we either do more of that, less of that, or we abandon it completely. So that's what firing bullets before cannonballs is really about. I hope that answers you, Anthony.
Super, Wins. Any other questions that we might be able to listen from the audience?
Let's see, just checking the chat. Not seeing any immediate questions popping up. Let's see. All right. Okay. Tony's got a rebuttal their question there. Mike, you want to tackle that one?
How can you empower or work with us to help build a winning business sales strategy? That's a great question. You know, I think it's around being able to understand in the first instance, why do you exist? You know, your strategy is around being able to link why you exist to the market that needs you. And the importance of a sales strategy is to how we articulate your value proposition and get it to more of the right people at the right time through the right channels and approaches. So would love to be able to unpack and discuss that with you, but ultimately a winning sales strategy is only as good as how well it gets executed. And the ability to execute against a strategy, I think, is one of the core muscles that a lot of companies are building some time and effort and energy around. And how do we understand the data? And what is the data telling us in terms of the execution of our plan, in terms of the tactics, the habits, the metrics? So the strategy is probably 30% of it. 70% of it is the execution of that strategy. Is it emergent enough? And are we pivoting when things don't go right for value?
Yeah. And really, you know, this is where the rubber hits the road. The execution of the strategy is absolutely key, and executing in dynamic environments, executing where it's actually difficult to forecast 12 months, let alone 36 months like we used to. Gone are the days of 3-year, 5-year plans or strategies. Those are out the window. We don't know where we'll be next Christmas, let alone perhaps next Easter. And the key is we have to be agile, we have to be dynamic, we have to get the right people on the bus, but we have to listen to the market. We have to let the market lead us and let the customer lead us. That custocentricity is the key today. And organizations that understand customer centricity, organizations that have their ear to the ground there, they're soaring. They're soaring despite the economic environment, despite the challenges. They are absolutely flying because the customer wants to be heard.
Wins, I think let's open up the QR code. Let's see if there are some insights we can garner from today. We'd love to be able to tap into some of your voices through some feedback mechanism. So if you could let us know how you found today's conversation, we would highly appreciate any of your thoughts, any of your reflections. As mentioned, we will be circulating a recording of today's conversation as well as the full ebook, which we should get. Please look out for a mail from myself. And if you're open to a further conversation, please highlight that in the QR code. We would love to engage with you further. If there are any other questions or comments that you haven't been able to tap into today or extend to us today, we'd love to engage with you offline if that's something that you would like. So, Wins,
Yeah.
how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, Mike. I'm feeling good. Nice hanging out with you. Always fun chatting about all the nuances and the dynamics in the workplace today around sales execution, sales strategy. My goodness, we're in a very dynamic marketplace. It's an exciting time to be alive. It's also a challenging time to be alive, Mike. But it's all good. It's all good. We spend so much of our waking lives working that we've got to have fun. We've got to enjoy it. And if there's anything I love about a sales professional is just going through the entire process, Mike, the negotiations, the back and forth, dealing with the disappointment, as painful and as much as those can hurt. It grows us. But we're in the arena as sales professionals every single day, and nothing excites me more than that.
Oh, fantastic. We always say that the big invitation, the differentiation of us in the market is how you make someone feel. It's what differentiates you from your competitors if you're open to exploring that. We'd like you to explore that internally. How do your teams feel? And do you make them feel that they belong? Thank you very much for hanging out with us, guys. We really appreciate the opportunity to share some of our insights with you. Enjoy the ebook, and we look forward to engaging with you further if you have any questions. But for now, bye for now. Thanks very much.
Over and out.